Did any of you guys play in the state championship game? Or that was just a little bit of a...
I'll say,
Okay.
both my junior and senior year, we lost to Burnsville twice my junior year. They won the state championship, and both those Burnsville games were really close.
Was that still when they only had one team from the conference make it to state?
That's a good question. You might have one.
Because, your junior year, Jefferson had a great team, and Burnsville beat us by a couple points. Burnsville just walked through the state tournament.
Yeah.
Jefferson didn't even make the playoffs because only one team from the conference made it. And, some of those seasons, the Lake was by far the best conference in the state, but only one team got to go.
Yeah, we my junior and senior year, we were at different times, both those football seasons, we were ranked number 1 in the state, like in the middle of the season. And then junior year, we lost to Burnsville, like I said, twice. They won the state championship. Then my senior year, they rearranged the Lake Conference, and we lost to Apple Valley that year, but we beat Osseo, and those two teams met for the state championship. So we were good enough, those, at least the years I was there, I was playing football here, to win the state championship both those seasons. So, yeah, we played on good teams.
So, quick question. So, obviously basketball is big, and you were all part of very successful basketball teams. And I think it was different back then, and a lot of people played multi-sports, but you all chose to play multiple sports in football, and maybe even Kevin on undefeated season and back-to-back state championships. Was there ever any pressure to not play football? Or what was your reasoning to play football at risk of getting injured for magical basketball season?
It seemed like maybe by the mid to late 80s, guys were like, it seemed like there was fewer and fewer hockey players that were playing football that should have been playing football. But they kind of focused on hockey. So it seemed like by the time I got there to mid to late 80s, kids were starting to kind of specialize a bit more, it seems like. My senior year, I initially didn't go out. I didn't go out for the team. For that reason, I was getting recruited for basketball. And I thought, God, if I blow my knee out or something happens on the football field. But I had grown up playing with all these guys football from 4th grade. I had statistics with Coach Shea over here. In the middle of that season, I had a little conversation with you just in your classroom. And I said, I'm thinking about going out. And we talked it over, and I went out for the team later on. So
Didn't Clem Haskins say, do you like basketball or like football, Kevin?
Clem did, yes.
Yeah.
Clem Haskins did.
Yeah.
Yes. Some of the college coaches that I was talking to were like, oh, we don't want you to play football. Make it hurt, da-da-da. But I went to Minnesota. I played for Clem Haskins in basketball, and he told me, like you're talking about, Coach, he's like, play football. It's okay. And so I think that was kind of a green light to make that decision, too.
Do you think a factor having 3 older brothers all playing football and your dad coaching also a factor in that?
100%. My dad's out there. My brothers all played through their senior year. And initially, I think the reasoning of why I didn't play right off the bat makes sense to some degree. But I wanted to play. And plus, we had a really good team. And so it kind of made it an easy decision.
Instantly, we were a better coaching staff.
But I do think things it definitely changed. At least sometime after I graduated in '83, and there was no pressure to focus on basketball or focus on a sport that I was aware of at that time. Kevin's situation a little different because he was getting heavily recruited, so you get that. But in at least I think the early '80s, there was zero pressure. I think also I've always said that I like the way Jefferson, at least my perception of the way Jefferson did it in terms of rewarding seniors. Reward upperclassmen. And don't always play the potential sophomore. Reward the senior. So then people would stay in sports. Once you start, nowadays, if you've got a 9th grader who's got potential, that kid's going to start over a senior in a lot of schools. And then that just disincentivizes kids to stay in the sport. And I think, the way we did it back in the 80s, so then you could play 3 sports because you might not start. I didn't start basketball until my senior year. But I was staying around because I knew we had a chance to play and do well and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that was something Jefferson did well.
And, as a kid, I mean, we grew up right across the street here. I mean, we used to play tackle the guy with, in the front yard, in the backyard. I mean, we used to just do that all the time.
Olson Elementary.
Also, I mean, yeah, we used to literally
The Everest.
we'd somebody have a football before we go into elementary school. And back then, I've never had very good eyes. I used to have glasses, and it was. I mean, and I just didn't see it. So I was out there playing tackle the guy with glasses on, and literally, I'd have tape on my glasses, and, whatever worked. But it was, when you're that age, you got a lot of energy. You want to get out there, and it just as we grew up, went to Olson Junior High, played football over there, and kind of just carried through. So. Yeah, there's certain aspects of football that were just the practices were okay, but if they wanted to throw the ball and I was a receiver, I just loved that. And up until just a few years ago, I used to play old man touch football a fair amount too. So I mean, it was we all enjoyed basketball, but I mean we enjoyed a number of different sports. We used to play baseball and all that stuff as well. So it was a fun time to grow up.
Slim Tim played tennis.
Well, tennis, yeah.
Little tennis.
Actually, you bring up the nickname too. It's kind of funny because
Oh, here we go.
Coach Waldner called me Slim, and Coach Shea called me Stretch. I don't think either one of them knew my name. And in the yearbook, in Johnny's senior year, I'm in the football picture, and I'm standing next to Johnny. There's J. Lynch, and then there's S. Lynch. Because literally, I don't think Waldner knew my first name.
That's been his nickname forever, Slim.
Yeah.
So
Stretch, okay. Yeah.
at some point, I'd like to tell a Bruno story.
Let's do it.
They've got some salty language in. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this the other day. My junior year, one of our captains, who was a senior that year, was Gary Getchman, who was a middle linebacker, fullback, good football player, tough guy, good leader, kind of our emotional kind of guy. He'd get us all hyped up. So we're playing a game late that season. Like I said, we won the late conference. We were right there to win a state championship. I think it might have been even a sectional or regional game. So we're playing it at Bloomington Stadium. And I really liked Gary. Gary was also a really funny guy, too, as our leader. But so it's halftime of this game. We all leave the field. We go behind the main football stands, at home at the Bloomington Stadium. And we're up 21-0. And all of us players, all 70 of us, are in a big circle. And Getchman's all hyped up. He's all jacked up at that moment. We're up big. We're going to win this game big. And Getchman's like, come on in here. And we all kind of come in, and he's like right in the middle of all of us. And he's like, he was all fired up. And he's like, we're going to humiliate him. We're going to annihilate him. We're going to kick their... And Bruno and the coaching staff started, you guys were walking up as Getchman was hyping all of us up. And Bruno hears what Getchman is saying. And Bruno's like kind of sauntering him. He's like, God damn it, Getchman, shut the fuck up. And Getchman's like, look, like he had this look on his face like, I thought you wanted me to do that. Oh, it was so, to this day, it still makes me laugh when I think of Gary Getchman, our captain. That's a good story.
Well, and as a kid, what would happen is after the Friday night football game, typically each one of the coaches would host a party.
Oh yeah.
After each Friday night football game. So generally there'd be one party at our house after a particular game, and the coaches would come in, and we're still pretty young. I was probably in elementary school still at that point. And actually, John and I had a bed. We shared a bedroom downstairs, and that's kind of where the party would take place at our house. And it would kind of get going, and the drinks would start flowing, and this and that would happen. And Bruno was kind of he'd start talking blue and talking all kinds of stuff, and that's when generally my parents would usher. I don't even know if they would send us upstairs. Why don't you guys sleep upstairs tonight? Because we could hear everything going on, in the room that bordered our bedroom. But yeah, he could. Well, Coach, you know better than I am, sure.
Well, Keck and I had a bedroom on the main level with a window looking toward the street. And at the end of one of those parties, I hear some noise, and I look out the window, and Coach head coach Bruno Wallner's walking down the street with like a pot on his head and pots and pans he's banging at midnight.
Oh, I never heard this one.
You guys were downstairs.
Yeah.
I remember at Lincoln Stadium, behind the stadium were the partiers. Do you kind of remember that? I don't know if they were smoking or drinking. I just kind of remember that because watching the game when I was younger, and I just would remember that. It's kind of the party scene, especially back then. Things weren't so strict back then.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say just about a couple things. One is Coach Mulherrick, who was my defensive coach my junior, senior year. We talked about great coaches. I'm sure his name has come up, but great coach. And then just, again, the Ebners were here recently. They might have said this, but I also remember our dad at two-a-days at the top of the hill. One of the things he had to do during two-a-days is run up the hill, sprint up and down, and he's up there in his line that all my high school buddies still remember are workers are winners. And, again, we kind of laugh about it, but it's something that says a lot about what he thought and how he coached.
And I remember Coach Pahula. He was my linebacker coach.
Yeah.
With, when I was a junior, it was Guess, Rodning, myself, linebacker. And, Coach, I just want to give a shout out to Coach Pahula.
Absolutely.
To me, it's too bad that this program, I know you got to a couple state championship games with how big of a school, a young community, especially 70s and 80s. I think it's with all the basketball success, hockey success through the years. To me, it's a shame. We were good enough to win a couple football state championships. Never happened for whatever reason, but it's unfortunate.
Well, and I think unfortunately in basketball, you get into the regions and every team has an opportunity, whether you're first in the conference or 12th. I mean, everybody has an opportunity. Back then in football, and that's what happens now, I believe, in football. Everybody gets a chance to and if that was the case, because they got into 2 state final championship games. I wasn't around here for the second one, but that first one, that team in '74, I guess it would have been, and that was the Jefferson. That was a really good team, and they ended up getting beat by Rochester John Marshall. And I remember my dad and I, we scouted Rochester John Marshall actually, a week or so before that game. But it was a fun time. Just the number of athletes that went through this high school is unbelievable. And the coaching staff had just huge amounts to do with the success. And the fact that our dad was there was just a cool thing growing up. I remember those days, very, very fond.
Daryl Thompson was the running back at Rochester Jam the year we lost in the finals.
Well, actually,
To you and
No.
he was
Kent Kitzman was the
Yeah, Daryl Thompson was when I was.
Thompson was in the 80s.
He was 80.
yeah. I think Kitzman played at the U. And for some reason, I remember there was some miscommunication in that Rochester game back in, because Tom Loris, all those guys, Sarfs were here, and it was just Stan Palmer. But there was some miscommunication. They weren't in the proper defense or something like that for that game against Rochester John Marshall when Kitzman ran crazy, as I remember. But anyways, going back a few.
Do you guys have a lot of footage from back in 70s, 80s and stuff?
Not yet. We're hoping
The hunt is on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean as far as football?
Game
stuff?
you talk about, you bring up a play and then you can go back and look at it. So,
Yeah, we're hoping to hunt some of that stuff down.
yeah.
I want to give a shout out to my dad. We miss you.
Yep. That's right.